Hey, what's up? Zach D Productions here, and I'm here with an album review for you guys. So for this review, this is a review for an album from a band that is very influential in the world of rock music, and they are, of course, very recognizable, and that band is Aerosmith. So the album that I'm going to talk about briefly from Aerosmith is one of their big albums, Toys in the Attic, which I know among the Aerosmith fan base, this is highly regarded as their best album, or at least one of their best. For me, I would say it's one of their best. I would not go as far to say it's their absolute best, though. There just happens to be other albums in their discography that I do prefer. Their album Rocks, to me, is probably their best album, which I know a lot of fans would agree with me on that. But Toys in the Attic, there's no going wrong with this album still. It's still a really good album. It's still a classic. And if you're a rock music fan of any kind, this is a must listen. It is absolutely a must listen for any rock music fan. And I don't care if the only rock you listen to is, stuff like Seether and Breaking Benjamin. You definitely got to go back and appreciate these classic bands like Aerosmith and check out this album for sure. This album does feature a lot of Aerosmith's big songs, of course, and you could say that this album is basically a greatest hits album since it does have a lot of their big songs on it. I mean, I'm sure you have heard some of these songs on the radio before, especially tracks like Walk This Way and Sweet Emotion. Just such memorable songs, just Aerosmith classics for sure. And again, I would say this is one of their best. It has some of their best tracks. I mean, yeah, you could make the argument that this does have some of their most overplayed material, but even with saying that, the material is still very strong and still enjoyable for sure. And you do get some really solid songwriting on here. Of course, everyone does a very good job on this album. Of course, from Steven Tyler, his vocals are excellent on this album. The musicians behind him do excellent here as well. So just going over some of these songs, you do have the title track, Toys in the Attic, which is one of the big songs that opens up the album. Very memorable, very catchy, of course. You do have Uncle Salty and Adam's Apple. Walk This Way, again, one of their big songs that I'm sure everyone has heard. Very memorable. Sweet Emotion, which is probably my favorite of the big songs off this album, if I'm being honest. I just really find the song very captivating, really catchy. It's a song that you just can't go wrong with, for sure. Very memorable, just great vocal deliveries from Steven Tyler, of course. Now, as for the more deeper cuts on the album, they're solid too. I do like the deeper cuts, especially No More, No More. I'd say it's one of the more underrated songs. Really dig that one. So, yeah, this is definitely classic Aerosmith for sure. It's classic Aerosmith. You just can't go wrong with this album. I mean, what can you say about an album like Toys in the Attic by Aerosmith? I mean, this is an album that I know a lot of rock music fans have heard already. It's just an essential. I mean, again, if you claim to love rock music, this is definitely an essential to check out. If you, of course, like Aerosmith, this is an essential to own in the collection, of course. Whether it's purchasing it on CD or vinyl, this is definitely a must-own if you love Aerosmith. This album is just really solid. It's a classic, and there's really no skips on this one. Brilliant songwriting, some of their best work for sure. So overall, really strong album. So that's my review for Toys in the Attic by Aerosmith. Really good album. So if I were to give this album a score, I would have to give it probably an 8.5 out of 10. So an 8.5 out of 10, Toys in the Attic from Aerosmith. Let me know what you think. Have you listened to this album? And if not, you should definitely do yourself a favor. Check this one out. Put it on Spotify or what have you. Give this album a listen for sure. It's definitely an essential in the rock genre. Really good album. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.